On this episode of Citizens, we head over to the SPCA in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. We'll find out about some of the amazing programs they have set up for the community, meet some of the incredible staff and volunteers that keep it all running, and, of course, spend some time with a few cuddly creatures that are just a few of the thousands of animals needing homes every year. Today I went to the Dartmouth Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. This non-for-profit organization, which relies on donations and volunteers from the community, has been in operation since 1991. To understand more about the SPCA and how animals are handled at the shelter, I first spoke with the Director of Animal Care, Sandra.
Our shelter here in Halifax is kind of a little bit unique. We have a hospital underneath our umbrella, underneath the roof of our shelter, which is an amazing benefit for us. We house anywhere between 80 to 120 cats at any given time, and usually 20 to 30 dogs at any given time. So we have around 3,000 animals that come through our shelter in Dartmouth, so it is the largest in the province. It's probably also the most robust in terms of programming. Animals come into our shelter for a number of different reasons. But when they do come into our care, they kind of follow the same intake procedure. So an animal comes into our shelter, it receives, it's vaccinated, dewormed, and flea treated on intake. It's held for 72 hours unless it's an owner surrender. Within that period of time, it's seen by a veterinarian. And then after the 72-hour hold is up and no owner has come forward, we scan it for a microchip. We'll feline leukemia test the cats. And after that period of 72 hours is over and nobody's come forward to claim that animal, we'll start the process in terms of getting it spayed and neutered, temp testing it if it's a dog, and then getting it up for adoption and hopefully into its forever home. We don't see ourselves as a long-term care facility. Our goal is to get animals in quickly, to receive the veterinary medical care that they need, and then to get them in their homes as quickly as possible.
Why do animals find themselves here in the shelter?
For any number of reasons. People's life circumstances change. We take in animals at our shelters through cruelty. They come in through hoarding situations. They come in as strays off the street, brought in by Good Samaritans. They are brought in from owner surrenders where their circumstances have changed. Either they are no longer able to care for their animal. Unfortunately, some people are incarcerated. They sometimes get evicted. They go through a divorce. They're moving away. It's kind of, it's an infinite variety of reasons that we receive animals. The good news is that we're not really, we work with whoever the person is that's bringing the animal. We just want to make sure that we're providing that service to the animal. We never refuse sick or injured. Those always come in through our doors, regardless of the reasons why they come to us. So we kind of look at ourselves as a social safety net for animals. So you have, in our government agencies, you have adult protection services and child protection services. We're animal protection services. So our role is to provide that safety net for the animals around the province. And in doing so, we help directly in our shelters in foster homes over 6,000 animals. All of our shelters in Nova Scotia under the SPCA umbrella are all no-kill shelters. And one of the reasons that we're able to do that is because we do have the ability to transport animals when shelters get full, or we have animals that have special needs medically or behaviorally. We don't euthanize for kennel space or for length of time. So it allows us, having a transport system within our own organization allows us to be able to have the best outcomes for animals at all times.
What is an average day like here at the SPCA?
Pretty much, it's a little bit like Groundhog Day in all of our shelters across the province for staff. So the morning is heavily involved in cleaning. So all of the animals have a thorough clean of their environment. They're fed and watered. Diagnostics are done on the animals. So every day we measure everything from how much they eat to drink to how much if they poop, if they pee, how they're doing temperament-wise, if they need to be revaccinated. getting them out for some exercise, getting them out with staff to assess their sociability and their touch. From then, it's kind of like we kind of put everything back together before we open to the public. And then the rest of the day, staff is doing things like diagnostics on new animals coming in, fosters coming in for checkups, that kind of thing, getting ready for surgery. There's a lot of record taking because our shelters all operate at a hospital level. So every single animal in our care has patient files. So a lot of diagnostics go into every single animal. We do fecals, urinalysis, we do x-rays, we do testing of animals. So there's a lot of medical care. A lot of people, I think of a shelter as that you're feeding and watering your animals, when in reality, that might be 3 to 5% of our day. Mm-hmm. The other 95% of our day is doing all of the other things that either provide the medical and veterinary care that they need or enrichment. So it's quite labor intensive and it's quite busy. And it's a very fast-paced environment. And then you kind of combine that with, at any given moment of any given day, you might have cruelty investigators that tell you that we're doing a seizure of 40 cats or we're bringing in 6 dogs. And regardless of whether that's what we expected that day, that's what's happening. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of have to adjust on the fly and you have to make allowances for that. And sometimes it might mean moving animals around. And it's just working out the details because there's no option to not accept animals within the society if they need our care. So we just make it work. And it's about communicating and just working really hard all the time.
Could you speak to me a bit about the volunteers that you have here?
We have amazing volunteers. Volunteers that have worked for the Society for a number of years are one of our biggest assets. They allow us to control our costs. They help with our capacity for care. In Dartmouth alone, for example, we have over 100 weekly volunteers that dedicate 1 3-hour shift per week. They probably account for 300 hours of staffing that we need, with an annual savings to the society of well over $200,000. Wow. And they do a lot of the hard work. They allow us to operate at full capacity. We wouldn't be able to afford that additional salaries and staffing without them. They do enormous amounts of things around the shelter besides just animal care. They drive our transports, they do maintenance on our buildings, they do our outside landscaping, they do admin work, they do adoption counseling, they go to our fundraising events, they spread the word around the community about the work that we do, they adopt animals, they foster animals in their home. They really do provide us immeasurable benefit. We wouldn't be able to do the work that we do without them. We certainly wouldn't be able to care for the same number of animals in our shelters as we do without our volunteers. And they help us on a hard day. They understand our environment. They make us feel like we're not in it by ourselves in terms of just people in the community that support the work that we do. And they're doing it all free. They're doing it volunteering their time. So we don't just think of them as volunteers. We think of them as a really integral part of our operations, and we need them. They're really important to us. When I started here a long time ago, we didn't have volunteers, and we only did a fraction of the number of animals because of that. So it really, really makes a big impact.
Next up on Citizens, we talk with the Chief Provincial Inspector about the enforcement of animal welfare. And we get behind the scenes to talk with the head veterinarian at the SPCA's Animal Hospital in Dartmouth. After speaking with Sandra about why animals find themselves without homes, I had the opportunity to observe the intake of one of the shelter's newest members.
Looks clear, there's no discharge coming out. A little dirty. So we got a microchip number. And we're gonna need a name. Arthur. Arthur works.
After seeing Arthur settled, I spoke with the Chief Provincial Inspector, Joanne, to find out more about the enforcement of animal welfare and how she became involved with the SPCA.
I think for me, animals has always been a big part of my life. So I was a veterinary technician for the majority of my life. So when I saw this opportunity come up, I started as an investigator. I learned the ropes and I did a lot of law enforcement training. And after that, I was here for a few years. I was promoted to the chief inspector. And since then, it's been quite the ride and I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
How does this program get funded?
So the Nova Scotia SPCA does receive some government funding for the enforcing of the Animal Protection Act. However, it's certainly not enough to cover the entire program and support us through all of our tools, all of our needs, and all of the animals that we bring into the shelter. You know, it is a common misconception that the Nova Scotia SPCA enforcement officers are government employees, you know, and that's not true. We do work for the SPCA, so certainly a lot of our, you know, resources come from public donations. So the Animal Protection Act is actually provincial legislation. So it's an act that protects the welfare of animals. And our, what we do is we're responsible for the jurisdiction of companion animals. So that's your dogs and your cats, your rabbits, you know, some pocket pets. So that's what we do. There are lots of instances when people are unsure of what they're witnessing. They don't really know if it's animal cruelty or neglect. So whenever they see an animal, you know, it doesn't have proper shelter, it's not getting proper medical care, or if it doesn't have access to fresh food and water, they should certainly give us a call and we can answer or we can ask the appropriate questions and then make a determination if there's been an offense committed under the Animal Protection Act. And we can create a file and we can dispatch an officer to go and check on that animal.
How can somebody determine whether an animal is actually in distress?
And that's a little bit hard for people to make that determination if an animal is in distress. But the important thing for people to remember is they should call us anyway and we can ask the questions and possibly we'll just go do a welfare check on that animal because we don't expect everybody to have the exact answers if an animal is in distress. That's why we urge them to call us and just have the discussion with us and we can help make that determination.
So would you say that it's better for somebody to call even if they're not sure?
Absolutely. I would encourage anyone, if they witness something that if they're unsure if it constitutes cruelty or neglect, just give us a call and we'll have a conversation with them. Oftentimes people are very nervous when they're called. Sometimes people think that that we're going to release their name to the person, and that's not the case. All calls that come into us are confidential, and we don't release that information to anyone under any circumstances.
What do you consider to be an emergency situation?
For us, an emergency situation would be an animal in immediate life-threatening danger. So that could be a few various things. It could be that you're walking down the street and you witness somebody abusing or beating a dog on the side of the road. So we don't have the resources to respond immediately to something like that. So we would recommend at that point that you call the police. Another situation could be if you're in a parking lot somewhere and it's 30 degrees out and you see a dog in a hot car who is, you know, panting heavily, lots of saliva or lethargic, laying on the seat unresponsive, that would be an emergency situation. So a call to the police may be appropriate in that situation. For the future of the Nova Scotia SPCA, I would like to see that, you know, we may be able to provide affordable veterinary care for low-income families in Nova Scotia. A lot of the cases that we see are animals that are suffering from, you know, medical illnesses, and their families can't afford the veterinary care that they need, so oftentimes they have to surrender their pets. Something else that I would like to see for the Nova Scotia SPCA is more infrastructure, you know, having more kennel space to house animals, community education rooms, you know, and better resources so that we can care for more animals in the future.
Next, I had the opportunity to talk with Dr. Allison Pollard about her experiences working at the shelter.
There's different times of year are faster paced than others. So in the summer, we're very busy, as you can see here today. We're busy today. So some days we may have 30, 35 animals here for surgery, and other days through the winter, it may be a bit slower. So it changes with the season, but right now we're definitely very busy.
Yeah, okay. Could you take me through the process of what it's like when an animal comes through the SPCA and needs to be spayed or neutered?
Sure. So they come in the door. The shelter staff do an examination. They do their intake. So they're tested for a cat, tested for viral diseases, vaccinated, dewormed, treated for fleas and ear mites. And then after a period of time, they come over here to this area and they have surgery. So they're spayed, neutered, have a dentistry if they require that. Anything that will require or that they require to become adoptable.
What do you think are some of the benefits to have your animal spayed or neutered?
Oh, there are so many. So decreasing population is huge. We see, as you can see today, so many kittens that don't have homes. So by spaying and neutering, you're preventing that from happening. Preventing disease transmission is another big one. Feline leukemia, for instance, is spread from mamas to babies. So by spaying, we're preventing that disease process from continuing. And then there's different health problems as well that we can prevent. Pyometra is life-threatening infection of the uterus, and that occurs in dogs and cats if they're not spayed. And it's a very expensive emergency when it does happen, so we can prevent that.
For you, what misconceptions have you seen from the general public about that?
One is that going through a heat cycle, for instance, will make a dog happier, and that's not proven to be true. There are other concerns with dogs, with male dogs' behavior. If they're unneutered, sometimes they're a little harder to handle. They may run more because they're looking for a mate, so there are some issues with that. But by spaying and neutering, you're not affecting your animal's quality of life. You're not giving them a lesser quality of life by spaying and neutering, and that is one misconception. Yes.
Do you ultimately think that people should go ahead with the surgeries for their animal, even if they don't come through to the SPCA?
Absolutely, yes, because we'll see it on the other end. If litter is born and they're not wanted, then they do end up here, and they do take resources to get them ready for adoption and get them adopted. So yes, spaying and neutering is so crucial to all pets.
Next up on Citizens, we'll learn all about the different programs the SPCA has to help members of the community and help support the animals that need our care. After seeing how some of the animals made their way to the SPCA, I wanted to find out more about the programs offered by the Society. To do that, I spoke with the Director of Programs and Administration, Heather.
I've been with the SPCA now for about 8 years. I started off with volunteering initially when I first moved to Nova Scotia, and then I worked over at the Dartmouth shelter before finally moving into this role. People traditionally think of the SPCA as a place to bring their animal or adopt an animal, but there is so much more to the programming that we offer. A lot has to do with helping people with their pets at home. Primary program we do is the spay-neuter program. We operate 3 spay-neuter clinics across Nova Scotia that provides low-income families an affordable option to get their pet spayed or neutered. And we have subsidies throughout the year, grants that we receive to help with that. We also do trap, neuter, return, which is spaying and neutering for feral cats. And we have a mobile clinic that travels across the province to access the colonies that are most in need there. The barn cat program is another program we've developed in the last couple of years. So sometimes when the cats come into our care, perhaps they were stray, and behaviorally there are some challenges there that they are not looking for an indoor pet cat sort of home. So we've been successful in advertising for working cats. So the situations may be a farm that wants an outdoor sort of pet to help with rodent control, or an indoor-outdoor sort of pet. Whatever that cat's best life could be, that normally they don't handle the shelter very well, they don't handle being indoors, it's just not what they're used to. So we've been able to place cats that behaviorally may not have options, in an outdoor type environment that suits them and that they're happy in, and it's the best solution that we can find for them. So it's a positive outcome, it's a happy outcome. One of our solutions to maintain a no-kill mandate is to provide a positive outcome for senior animals who are entering our care, who may have a medical need, but are currently enjoying a good quality of life. They're happy, but they do have a condition that's going to affect their lifespan. So we have been successful in finding foster homes really willing to open their home to an animal that they know doesn't have a lot of time left, but they're able to provide such a wonderful last chapter for that animal's life and get them to experience a lot of positive things that they may have not experienced up until now. In our palliative care program, you are looking after the animal, but the SPCA is taking on all the medical costs and medical needs of that animal. So we're only able to do that through donations and funding and sponsorship to help us cover those costs. The foster home is doing such a great thing in providing a great quality of life, and that's how we sort of encourage people to take on these animals with medical needs, is by providing the medical side of it, the cost side of it. The PUP program, it stands for Prevent Unwanted Pregnancy. So the goal of this program was really to stop the population boom of puppies and kittens that you often see, more so on the kitten side, really given away for free on social media, buy, sell type of sites. So if you have an accidental litter of kittens or puppies, and you work with the SPCA and allow us to help by rehoming those kittens or puppies, we will spay or neuter your mother, cat, or dog, and all for free, and then return her to your care. So she stays in your care, and the cycle of breeding is completely stopped. The mother is fixed, as well as all the kittens or puppies are spayed or neutered as well. The foster program is really essential to what we do. We have a limited amount of space in each of our facilities, and really the foster homes help us help more animals. They socialize the animals, they look after their care, while the SPCA takes on all the costs, provide all the supplies, but they're giving the animal that extra TLC and staying in their home, so they're not staying in the shelter while those kittens are growing up until they're ready for adoption. The SPCA is covering all the medical costs, the cost to care for the animals, the facility that's provided. We cover those costs through donations, fundraising. There are some adoption fees, of course, but those don't nearly cover the amount of care and expense that we put into the animal's needs. So we, of course, are always looking for more support in terms of donations. We also receive grants for some of the programs that we do at certain times, but we are always in need of more donations and support to continue these programs.
What are some of the things that they could help with here?
Yeah. Of course, money is the number one need, because we do have medical expenses and there's bills that you need to pay. But there are all sorts of ways that you can help. We get a lot of donations in terms of items. We get a lot of donations in terms of people's time. A lot of people that may have a certain skill or expertise that they're lending us their skills and their time to help us improve our shelter. We have drivers that drive animals to the vet or to across the province. So there is a lot of ways that you can give. There are also the SPCA thrift stores that you can donate your used goods to the thrift stores, and all the money raised at the thrift stores comes back to support the animals at the shelter.
Then I took some time to visit with some of the dogs at the shelter. Spending the day with the wonderful staff at the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals had been a heartwarming experience. Not only was everyone incredibly welcoming and kind, but it was obvious that the love and attention also extended to the animals in their care. I had learned so much about what this amazing group of people were doing for the lost and mistreated companions in our province. But I had yet to speak with some of the biggest heroes here, the volunteers. We'll find out ways that you can get involved, what it's like to be a volunteer, and meet some kittens that have gone on an incredible journey to find safety. Next time on Citizens.